Welcome to Module 9 of Ethical Hacking Essentials, and we're going to be looking at mobile attacks and countermeasures. So I want to ask you a question. Do you own a cell phone? You know, just a few decades ago, if you answered yes to that, you would be seemingly one of the rich, elite people. Maybe you had a car phone or something like that. But now cell phones are ubiquitous. Mobile devices are ubiquitous. Tablets, cell phones, and many other mobile devices. So it's very important for us to understand what some of their issues are and how those can be taken advantage of by attackers and how we can put together countermeasures to counter those types of attacks. So what we're going to be looking at in this module are several things. Number one, we're going to start off looking at the anatomy of a mobile attack. We're going to look at the different platforms for mobile devices and the vectors of attack. We're also going to be looking at vulnerabilities for mobile platforms. We're also going to drop down and look at MDM, mobile device management, that we find in businesses and enterprise organizations. And then we're going to have a look at security tools that we can use to safeguard our devices in terms of mobile security. Welcome to Ethical Hacking Essentials Module 10. And here in Module 10, we're going to look at IoT and OT attacks and countermeasures. A little bit of difference between the two of those. And you know, IoT and OT are ubiquitous. They are everywhere, from our doorbells where we can remotely see what's going on, to kitchen appliances, to hospital devices, automotive, IT, it's everywhere. We will look at some of the industries where it is. So it's very important to look at attacks for IoT, OT, and then what do you do about it? I got some countermeasures. So let's get started with that. All right, so what we're going to look at in terms of module objectives are, number one, just a little bit of understanding. What is it we're talking about with IoT? We drop down to number 4. We're going to do that with OT also, okay? And then we're going to look at IoT attacks and IoT tools. We're going to look in number 5 at OT attacks and OT tools. We're going to look at IoT attack countermeasures and security tools, and we're going to do the same thing for OT. So we're going to split the time between IoT and OT. Let's start at IoT. Welcome to Ethical Hacking Essentials, Module 11, where we're going to talk about cloud computing, threats, and countermeasures. Let's have a look. In this module, we're going to look at multiple items. Number 1, we're going to look at cloud concepts, container technology. We're going to look at threats against cloud computing, attacks and tools, countermeasures for cloud computing and cloud attacks. And we're going to look at an overview of some of the security tools that are available for the cloud. Welcome to Ethical Hacking Essentials Module 12, where we're going to talk about penetration testing. Pen testing is usually the end goal of a lot of students that go through the ethical hacking series here at EC Council, from network defense to ethical hacking through the certified pen testing course. And so it's a very good idea to find out what in the world it is. And so we're going to look at 6 different areas in this module. Number 1, pen testing and its benefits. Number 2, we're going to look at the different types of pen testing. We're going to understand the phases and methodologies of pen testing. And we're also going to look at some recommendation and guidelines for pen testing. And lastly, some of the risks. There are risks associated with pen testing. So let's start with number 1. Here in number 1, we're going to be looking at discussing information security fundamentals. So what is information security? Well, we have information. Information is actually different than data. Information has meaning. And as such, it's more valuable. And what we want to do with that information is secure it, right? I have a little bit of a state of well-being of that information in that infrastructure with respect to the possibility of theft or tampering or disruption of that information. So what we want to do is keep the threat of theft, tampering, disruption either low or to a tolerable level, and really zero theft or tampering is even better. So we want to keep it as low and tolerable as possible. So the need for security is great. It's a huge need for security. One of the reasons is of the evolution of technology. We are evolving technology so quickly that we have let security get away from us in some cases. And that technology is not focused on security. Usually it's focused on ease of use. We want to make it as easy to use as possible. Also, we rely on computers for everything, accessing, providing, storing information, and we have network environments of various types, from on-premise networks to the cloud, to IoT, to OT networks, to wired networks of various types, to wireless networks of various types. Man, quite a lot. Now we look at the impact of security breaches to the corporate, and just not just corporate, but let's say to the organization, right? Because maybe you're not a corporation. Maybe you are a family in a house, and one of the family members got hit by some type of attack, or maybe you're a nonprofit organization. No matter what you are, we don't want you to fall prey to security attacks, so that's why we need information security so much. Also, we have complexity that increases layer upon layer in infrastructure and administration and management of information security systems. That complexity also leads to attack. So we have a need for security. So let's look at some of the elements of information security. The first one we see is the idea of confidentiality. When you see that term, think of encryption. We want to make sure that only authorized people have access to the information. Then integrity. When you think of integrity, think of digital certificates or maybe even hashes. What we want to do is make sure that the information has not been changed, irrespective of what medium it goes through and who sent it or received it. It hasn't been changed. Then we look at authenticity. We want to make sure we know who it is who has conducted the exchange of the information, because we want each party to authenticate. We know who they are. Non-repudiation. We want to make sure that the sender of the message can't say, I didn't do it. I never sent that message. They can't deny having sent it. Why? Because there are identifiers bound up in the message that are inextricably linked to the sender. So we know that the sender did it. And through all of these elements, we want to make sure that the data, the information, the communication is available, allowing us to deliver and store and process information as an authorized user. I want to be able to get to it. I want to log into, open up my resources and make use of them, make sure they're available, even though I have encryption and digital certificates and IPsec and drive encryption and other security items going on. I still want to have my data available. All right, so in terms of functionality, so I have security, have all these restrictions, I have login, I have encryption, etc. But I have also features. So I have application developers that allow me to do all kinds of stuff with the software. But in order to use those features, it's very nice to have usability or have a nice graphical user interface and buttons and 3D animations when I click on a menu. It's all nice to have around. So which one of these is going to be featured the most? So for instance, if I have security, I may not be able to use the nice functionality of the usability, or if I have too much usability, maybe I have less security, right? So we're always kind of bouncing around between these, trying to move as close to security as possible, keeping functionality and usability around too. So there are security challenges. So let's say that you are a corporation and it is the 80s and and you're running your organization just like normal, but then a company called Enron implodes, taking down billions of dollars. And then Congress and the Senate meet and they pass laws. And now there is a set of laws called Sarbanes-Oxley or SOX. And guess what you have to do? Comply. So now you have laws and regulations. And let's say that your organization merges with an organization that works with clinics and hospitals. And now you have HIPAA. And then let's say that you decide to start doing government contracts. And now you have FISMA. It goes on and on. You have laws and regulations that you must comply with. And then we have security challenges like lack of qualified and skilled cybersecurity professionals. Now, I hope right now that you will help us solve this by being one of the qualified and skilled cybersecurity professionals, right? So we have such a fast growing area in technology and IT that we don't have enough skilled workers. So I'm glad you're in this class. Difficulty for centralizing security in a distributed computing environment. So you have a large organization like a corporation that has on-premise data centers. They have connections to Azure and AWS cloud providers. They have manufacturing arms that have IoT and OT networks. They have Wi-Fi networks and Bluetooth, and it just gets crazy. Lots of potential security problems. Distributed, all need to be secured. Also, we have a fragmented and complex privacy and data protection regulation industry. So which data protection law or regulation am I under? It's hard to figure out sometimes. And sometimes it even takes a professional and legal help for larger organizations to put that together. And then we have compliance issues because we have people who bring their own devices. We have tablets and we have phones and so on. And we have these policies in the organization, but then we have compliance and we have to make sure they work together. And then we have relocation of sensitive data from legacy data centers where we used to just have them in a file server and then we backed it up onto tape and now it's in multiple cloud structures. And what if it's not configured appropriately to protect that data? Tell you what, there are many different security challenges, and it's usually not just one of these, but a combination of most, if not all, of these security challenges. Now, what happens is there are entities, people, attackers out there that want to get to your data. And so they have motives and goals. They have objectives. But you know what? They can't attack you unless they have this equation solved, right? So let's say that there is a medium-sized business and they have a website, and the website is used all the time. And it helps bring in money, helps direct users to information. But this website has a lot of vulnerabilities in it, right? Why isn't it attacked? Well, maybe nobody knows about it. Maybe no one has tried to scan it. Maybe it hasn't been paid attention to. So there is no goal or motive to attack the website, even though there are methods to take it down, even though there are vulnerabilities on the website. There is no motive. All right. So then again, you can have a company. Let's say you have a company, and this company has a website, a web application, and there's a group of hackers, attackers, threat actors that hate that company. And so they're hacking away and trying, but guess what? There's no vulnerability. There's no way to get into it, and they're continually frustrated. Oh, that would be nice. We want to stop people from attacking. So it's all three of these that you need to be able to have an attack. So the motive originates out of the notion that the target system stores or processes or contains something valuable, and so the attackers want to have at it. So those attackers want to exploit the vulnerabilities in the system. And what are the motives? They just might want to break that business. They might steal information. They might want to create fear and chaos. I'm just kidding, chaos, disrupting the critical infrastructures. They might want to steal money, financial loss. They might want to damage the rep of the target and make them look bad. Yeah, this company is bad. So there are many different things that they might want to do. So let's look at attacks. There are several different types of attacks in terms of classification. A passive attack, they're just looking around. So for instance, let's say that they're watching, they're sitting, let's say there's someone in a parking lot. They have a laptop and they're looking at the Wi-Fi traffic, just sniffing it, looking at what traffic happens. They're not causing anything to happen. It's just passively listening. Or maybe somebody in one building has a parabolic antenna and they're looking at the vibrations of the window in the conference room of the building across the way and listening in on the meeting in the conference room, right? That's passive. They're not actively interacting. Or they're going to LinkedIn and reading information about employees or about the company. Or they're going to a job site looking for jobs that are being advertised to see what types of protocols and programs that company has that they're hiring employees to help with. Those are all passive. There's no interaction. It's passive. An active attack is when you tamper with, you change things, you interact with, you may even disrupt communications by conducting an attack like a man in the middle session hijacking or SQL injection. You know, an active attack is also if instead of just parking outside of the organization with a listening device, you just go into the front desk and you ask for information. You have now gone active. You're interacting with the target of your attack. A close-in attack is when there is close physical proximity. So for instance, people have been attacked from across the world quite a lot. But what if they're in the building next door? Or what if the person is dressed like a delivery person, but really they're an attacker inside the organization with access to systems now where they can plug in stuff and gather and disrupt and access to things. So for instance, a close-in attack can be social engineering or eavesdropping right there inside the organization. Or maybe standing there looking casual, but really shoulder surfing, reading what somebody is typing or writing, or maybe somebody throws away an important document and somebody takes it out of the trash and uses it in an attack. We also have insider attacks. This is when somebody who works for the company violates the rules, intentionally causing damage, destruction to the organization. Like for instance, stealing a physical device. So they may steal a laptop or a tablet or something like that. And that device might have information on it that can damage the organization if it gets out of the organization. Or they may stay a little bit late and look like they're working late and then making sure everyone's gone off the floor, go in their pocket and pull out a little keylogger. Have you seen these before? Watch, try this. Open up a tab in your browser right now and in DuckDuckGo or in Google, type in keylogger. See this word right here? Just type it in, keylogger, and then go to shopping. If you go to shopping, you'll see the keylogger is a little USB dongle. So if somebody stayed late, let's say they spent $200, bought 3 or 4 or 5 of the keyloggers, they can find the attack target. Let's say they go plant one behind the PC of the supervisor, go plant one behind the PC of the financial person, etc., and then they can collect the data, right? Or they can have a flash drive and plant a back door, malware, all kinds of stuff, right? These are insider attacks. And then we have distribution attacks, and they tamper with hardware or software before it even makes it to the site. So like for instance, I've worked for many organizations in the IT department where we had agreements with Dell or agreements with HP that when we got PCs or servers delivered, they would have them pre-configured for us with our own images on them. That would save a lot of time. And so what can happen with a distribution attack is somebody can interfere with that at one of those companies, and when we get the PC, it's compromised. These are very similar, but it's a little bit different to supply chain attacks, where something like that happens with the distribution of software. So for instance, you have a Ubuntu Linux box and you're doing an update, but little do you know, somebody has changed the update parameters so that there is a malicious update that's coming in from an official source, right? That could be like a supply chain attack. So distribution attacks, supply chain attacks, there are all kinds of attacks that can happen to organizations. So what are the attack vectors? We have cloud computing threats. So for instance, we have all these wonderful on-demand services that we can get from cloud providers. But there's a possibility of sensitive data leakage. We could have flaws in the way that the application works. There are many different ways that the cloud communication can be tampered with. There are the idea of advanced persistent threats. I was called to do some consulting for an organization that they were doing real estate, property management for commercial real estate. And the problem was, though, that there was an email that was sent out to all of their clients that said, for your convenience, we have made it better for you to pay your lease. And remember, this is commercial real estate. If you're leasing or renting a house for your family, it might be, $2,000, $1,000 a month. But if you have commercial real estate, it could be $10,000, $50,000 on up a month for the commercial real estate. And we have a new way for you to pay. All you have to do is click on this link and use this ACH number, and you can conveniently pay for your lease. So a few of their clients actually did that, but somebody said, "Excuse me, why are you changing the way we pay?" And the people at the company said, "Oh, we didn't change the way you pay." They sent them a sample of the email. The email was sent officially from that company on their official email. What had happened was somebody had attacked the network. They had stayed there inside the network, full access, and figured out a way where they could steal money. That was an advanced, persistent threat. Do you know what the average amount of time that it takes for an organization to figure out that they've been attacked and have an attacker inside their network hacking away at stuff? You know what the average amount of time it is? What do you think? It is 208 days. That's the better part of a year that somebody could be camped out in your network attacking it. So that's an APT. We have worms and viruses. Big difference between a worm and a virus. Now, both of them are sophisticated codes that are able to infect. But just like in biology, a virus needs a vector. Right? So if somebody has a disease and their hand is sweaty and covered with the disease, and I shake their hand, and do I now have the disease? No, actually, there might be 1 billion viruses on my hand, but I don't have the disease. They're not going to crawl up my arm. In fact, if I quickly go wash my hands, the viruses are gone. But if I shake somebody's hand and then it feels really clammy and weird, I'm like, oh man, I think that dude is sick. And I start eating my potato chips, and I transfer the virus from my hand to the potato chip, from the potato chip into my mouth. Well, then I'm in big trouble, right? So viruses need a transport in biology and in technology. But worms, let's say that you're in the garden, growing a nice big garden in the backyard, and it's a summer morning, and you dig up a big chunk of the garden, and then you get a phone call, and you're talking on the phone, and meanwhile, guess what? A worm comes out, and it just starts crawling on its own. Worms don't need transport. They'll transport themselves. So in the world of computers, a virus might need your email application in order to send itself. And if you don't have an email application, it might not even work. The virus may not be able to do anything else. But it can send itself using your email application. The email application is the viral vector. However, a worm, let's say I have a laptop, I take it to a network. The worm says, "Hey, cool, a network." And the worm crawls out of my laptop and starts just finding all kinds of other ports that are open on other devices that are connected to the network and spreads itself. No need for a vector. So big diff between worms and viruses. Keep that in mind. Just match it up to biology. You'll be fine. Ransomware. Have you ever heard of ransomware? Me either. What's that? I've never heard of that. Just kidding. If you've watched any news, if you work for any organization, you've heard of ransomware, right? Where a screen pops up. It's a splash screen on your computer, and it says all your files have been locked. If you want to unlock your files, send us 5 Bitcoins before 11:30 a.m. tomorrow, or 48 hours or whatever, locking all the files. And some threat actors will actually not only lock all the files of a big organization, but they will take a sample, or not a sample, they'll just even take it all the data they can get, gigabytes of data, and they'll say, if you don't pay us, then we will drop this data on the internet for anyone to see. And so ransomware can be pretty bad. And then we also have mobile threats. A lot of us think our phones are safe. Why? Because the phone hasn't ever been attacked that we know of before, and you don't see a lot of information about phones, mobile devices, tablets being attacked in the news. But for those of us who deal with cybersecurity, we know that phones, mobile devices, are a definite vector for attack. So what I tell all my students, what I tell all my clients and other people is, on your phone, where's my phone? Here's my phone right here. You need antivirus on your phone. We'll get to that a little bit later when we get to mobile security later on in the class. Other vectors, botnet, specifically for IoTs and mobile phones, they can become botnets where they become the source of the attack and they're controlled by a controller. Insider attacks, where somebody who's trusted, who works for the organization, or a consultant, or somebody who's on the inside attacks the network. Phishing, where an email or a text or some other type of communication that looks legitimate and appeals to the person is actually an attack, trying to acquire information. Web application threats, where you are trying to just get to a website, download it, you're trying to download a web app and use it, but you get attacked. Something happens and they try to redirect you or steal information or get you to click on a link that will become a threat. Or IoT. You have devices, Internet of Things-based devices that are compromisable, and they become a threat to the organization because of flaws in these devices that allow the attacker to remotely perform attacks based on that device. All right, let's have a look at some laws and regs for information security. Now, if you work for an organization that uses and processes, makes use of customer credit card data, then you are covered by PCI DSS. PCI DSS is the payment card industry security data standard. And so this is very important for people, like I said, processing credit cards, debit cards, some of those like prepaid gift cards that you can get, and e-purses, ATMs, point of sale registers, and so on. And so it applies to all the entities involved with that. And at a high level overview for PCI DSS, what they want us to do is to be able to maintain a secure network, protect that cardholder data. We don't want the card exposed. Maintain a vulnerability management program, implement access controls, regularly monitor the network, regularly test the network, maintain information security policy. So if you don't do this and you have customer payment data, then you can get fined. You can get your privileges of processing credit card data removed and revoked, and get very hard to get it back again. So it's very important to comply with PCI DSS if you are processing customer credit cards, debit cards, etc. The next one is ISO IEC 27001. 27001 actually covers quite a lot, and there are a lot of subtopics in 27001, but there is specifically 27001:2013, which is the requirements for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving your information security management system. This is actually pretty cool. So if you are interested in doing that, which I think a lot of us are, what you do is you take all of the tenets of 27001:2013 and you match them up with how you are doing in your organization and see if you can bring your level of efficacy, of how well you're doing, to the level of 27001:2013. Or maybe you're actually doing things better. But either way, you can look at the way your organization does security objectives and requirements, information security management, cost-effectively managed security risks, looking at the management status of your information security activities, making sure you're in compliance with laws and regs, making sure that you have business established information security implemented really well, making sure that you have good information security management processes, making sure that you have relevant information about security, that you get it out to your customers. All of this is part of 27001, 2013. All right, so let's say that you are an organization, and maybe you are a medical clinic, maybe you are a hospital, maybe you deal with surgical instruments, maybe you deal with medical supplies, whatever it is. If you deal with patient data at all in the medical industry, you are going to be subject to HIPAA. HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act that's primary purpose is to protect patient data. So some of the simplification of HIPAA rules, we want each provider who does business electronically to use the same healthcare codes, the transaction identifiers, right? So we want to be able to match code for code, identifier for identifier, so we know who's talking what. So very important. Also, we want to have protections for the personal health information, right? If somebody's undergoing tests for cancer or some other disease, and it's in the medical record, even if it turns out negative, it might negatively affect that person's future if that data leaks out. And so it gives the patients an array of rights to not disclose health information. And then we have a specification for administrative and physical and technical standards for confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that electronically protected health data. So we want to protect it, secure it, but make it available to those who are authorized to see it. If you're a healthcare provider, health plan, or an employer dealing with healthcare, then you want to have, again, national numbers. These are going to be things like Social Security and other types of national numbers to identify transactions, right? So then providing standards, enforcing it, administration, and simplification of rules. So all of this is a very highly simplified kind of distillment of some of the important stipulations, I guess we could say, of HIPAA. SOX. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and this came out of the Enron debacle, where they lost billions and billions of dollars of investor money, causing great problems all over the world, but specifically in the United States. And then in 2002, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was put together. How? Why? To protect investors, to protect the public. Right? You may be an investor in a corporation. All right, and then if you lose money, you chose that path, and it was, you knew there was risk. But what if you just have a pension, or you have some type of a savings fund that they invest in that organization, and it crashes and burns, and there goes your savings. So it's protecting the public and investors. Some of the key provisions of SOX, there are actually 11 titles. Very quick overview of these public accounting and oversight boards. So we want independent oversight of auditing services. One of the big deals that you'll see with SOX is it's not just about the corporation. It's about the accounting of that corporation. Because with Enron, it wasn't just Enron. It was their multi-billion-dollar accounting company too, that they participated in it. So SOX identifies that there is responsibility to the board of the corporation. So in other words, if I am the CIO, CFO, or CEO, I can't say, I had no idea that someone was cooking the books and changing with the financial information. I didn't know No, actually, you are personally responsible, is what SOX says. In fact, in Title II, the auditor has to be independent. In Title III, yeah, you have to be responsible for accuracy in every financial report. In Title IV, there are enhanced financial disclosures. In other words, we want pro forma figures. We want off-balance sheet transactions. We want everything that normally you would be hiding to hide your money. Oh no, we want to see that. Also with Title V, we don't want your analysts, your accountants, your CPAs to have conflicts of interest. Why? Because we want investors to be confident that what they are seeing, that reporting, is actually real. That's Title V. Title VI, we want the practices of the Commission of Resources and Authority, again, to be done in a way that will preserve, again, we see this over and over again in SOX, to restore investor confidence in this case, security analysts. And then in Title VII, we have subsidies and reports where we want to take that public accounting, take credit rating agencies, security markets, and so on, and enforce violations and take these organizations and make sure they're not manipulating earnings or obfuscating true financial conditions. But wait, there's more. There's more of SOX. Title VIII, we want to manage corporate and criminal fraud accountability and make sure that we have good penalties for any manipulation, destruction, and alteration. So for instance, if you're about to be investigated and so you have people up for all day and night, shredding and burning every document, right? That is willful destruction of potential fraud information, and you can be in big trouble. Also, Title VIII tries to protect whistleblowers. So if there's someone inside the organization that says none of the financial reports are real, it's all fake, and then the organization, does everything they can to take that whistleblower down. Nope, we don't want that to happen. Title X, white-collar crime penalty enhancement. So used to be that if white-collar crimes happened, you didn't get much of a penalty, but now it's actually enhanced, stronger sentencing behind bars. Oh yeah, Title 10, 11 is corporate tax returns for your CEO. The CEO needs to sign off on it. The CEO can't say, "Oh, not me. I didn't see that tax return. I see no evil." So that's with Title 11, Title 12, corporate fraud accountability, identifying fraud, tampering, etc. The SEC can actually freeze large or unusual payments, like the organization might be trying to pay off somebody. So what does this have to do with you in IT? Well, you as an IT ethical hacker, security worker, network defender, you might need to facilitate the SOX titles in the IT department on servers, workstations, and creating application security and so on to help facilitate making this possible. Like for instance, in terms of auditing, you might need to create accounts, et cetera, that help auditors look into transactions, trades at the corporate level, the accounting level, et cetera. So you may have to deal with this as an IT worker. Next, we look at DCMA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. There was a problem near the turn of the century because in the 1990s, new technology became available to do some very amazing stuff. Did you know that you can buy this plastic thing called a CD and you put it into a player and you don't even need a tape or a record player? Music comes out. It's all digital. Oh, really? Can I copy it like I copied my tape or my record player? Nope. It is actually encrypted. Same with this other new technology called a DVD. But wait, technologies then came out that allowed you to decrypt the MP3 and decrypt the DVD and take that encrypted digital data and put it wherever you want. This was the age of Napster. And Napster and related technologies that could rip, you still call it rip, rip is short for rip off, or steal that digital information, became extremely popular. Well, whose information were they ripping? It was the information of the entertainment industry, music, Hollywood, all the people who had copyrights and were very dependent on record sales and video sales in order to keep their income up, which was directly threatened by this activity. Well, the entertainment industry is powerful. They went to Congress, and it turned out this was a big issue, and eventually the Digital Millennium Copyright Act was formed. And so, one day, some people in suits knocked on the door of a suburban mother who was just cleaning up after lunch and said, "We've looked at the IP address, and this house is stealing digital information." Yep, it was 12-year-old Johnny, who's at school right now, who's running Napster in his bedroom. So either way, that's the DMCA in a nutshell. It's still active. Also, it can apply to your organization, especially if there are illegal recordings of intellectual property that are stored in your network. So you have to be very careful that the copyright owners' works are protected, right? We don't want it to be altered, moved, or whatever. We want that information not to be on our network. So DCMA, very important still in the world today. The next one I want to talk about is FISMA. FISMA is the Federal Information Security Management Act, right? So it is a comprehensive framework for what? Well, making sure that we have good security controls over information that supports what? Federal. What federal? The United States of America. Federal operations and assets. So if you are a federal contractor, if you are a federal agency, you're going to be covered under FISMA, Information Systems Mission Impact, requirements for information systems for minimum security, selecting appropriate security controls for information systems, making sure that you have control effectiveness and you have authorization, security authorization in your information systems. There's a little reference there, certnist.gov, where you can look up FISMA. So again, for federal agencies, we have FISMA and good old European Union. So the European Union got together. They make a lot of laws, just like the United States makes a lot of laws. And as of May 25th, 2018, they put together the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. And what GDPR's principles are was lawfulness, fairness and transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality, and accountability. If you ask anybody who has heard of GDPR, they'll actually talk about two things. Number one is the right to be forgotten. So if I go to a website, a provider, an organization, and I say, hey, I don't want to be part of this anymore, get rid of my information, then they should be able to delete all your information from all their archives. And as far as that organization is concerned, you no longer exist. That's the right to be forgotten. The other artifact of GDPR is cookie notifications. Oh yeah, those nice cookie notifications you see all over the internet. That is from GDPR. Now you may ask yourself this question, wait a minute, I don't live in the European Union. Why in the world am I affected by GDPR? Well, it's because anybody who does business with or presents information to or works with or has availability to the European Union has to comply with GDPR, or they'll be blocked from the European Union, right? So if I have an organization and I have a website and people from Europe go to it, view it, shop on it, or whatever, then I better comply with GDPR, or else that availability will be gone. Next, we look at good old DPA 2018. This is the Data Protection Act regulation for individuals that are making connection with any of the functions of the commissioner, including regulation of marketing codes. It's really to protect individuals in terms of personal data, that it is processed lawfully, that it's processed fairly, that the rights of individuals are protected, and so on. Wait a minute. I said commissioner. Which commissioner? Well, this also is not a United States Act. This is a UK Act. So if you want to look further into the DPA, go to www, right down here, if I can get my laser pointer to go down there, www.legislation.gov.uk. So irrespective of where you live, whether it's in the United States, where you have all these extra laws like Trademark and Patriot Act and Computer Security Act of 1987, whether you're in Australia, United Kingdom, or China, whether you're in Italy, Japan, or Singapore with the Computer Misuse Act, guess what? If your information interacts with these countries, or if you're doing business in these countries, you're going to have to know what these laws are. And one of the problems with laws is they don't go away. So if you have an act that was created in 1974, it may not even be relevant anymore to current modern processing, but it can be applied to it. So you and your legal team need to examine it and the laws of any of the countries with which you do business. So lots to think about. What we want to do is protect information dissemination, protect information and data flow, protect stored information, protect our customers, patients, credit card numbers, etc. And so there are acts, there are laws that can help do two things. Number one, tune up our organization like the ISO, IAC, and to protect patients and credit card users, etc., like PCI DSS and HIPAA. So that brings us to the end of this module. In the next module, I'm going to give you an introduction to ethical hacking, look at some of the fundamentals of the cyber kill chain methodology, hacking concepts, classes of hackers, and we're also going to look at the phases of ethical hacking. So this is the various phases of the hacking cycle. That's what we're going to be doing next time. So that's the end of this module. Join me for Module 2. All right, so let's look at number 1, which is understanding the cyber kill chain methodology. This is the cyber kill chain. It sounds mysterious, but actually it's not that mysterious. We have reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and action on objectives. What does all that mean? It's a chain. And like a chain, I remember riding bicycles when I was a kid, and the chain broke. Boom! And when that chain breaks, you can no longer move forward. And that's the case here too. So if you can break the chain, then the attack no longer happens. So what does that mean? Let's say that I'm an attacker and I'm like, I'm going to attack that organization and maybe take down one of those employees. And so I do some reconnaissance and I find out that there are 5 employees who seem like good targets. So I craft an email that has a target that I have weaponized. It is an attachment that when the employee opens it, it's going to hack their computer system. So I weaponize and then I email the email to the 5 employees and it lands on their system. Employee number 1 sees the email and it says, free Starbucks card if you attend this online seminar, just click here. And the email looks weird, so employee number 1 deletes it. Employee number 2 looks at part of the title, deletes it. Employee number 3 actually finds it intriguing, but then realizes that it's from outside the organization and puts it into quarantine, and employee number 4 does the same thing, but employee number 5, oh my goodness, says, whoa, this actually looks cool. I think I will click on it. And when he does, guess what happens? The exploitation starts because the code unloads and finds the PC and begins to run the CPU and the memory and look around to see what's going on. But then the antivirus software kills it. Boom, it's gone, right? So where could this have been killed before? In this case, we killed it right after, actually we had the beginning of the installation. So this was between exploitation and installation. Now, for employee number 5, we could have killed it before exploitation, but we didn't, right? We could have killed it before delivery by being able to block emails with attachments, but we didn't. We probably, in this case, could not have killed it at the weaponization phase because that was off of the radar. But the earlier in the chain we kill it, and in fact, anywhere in the chain that we kill it, there are times when the software is installing. There are times when the software is communicating back with the handler's command and control system. And then by the time we get to this last part where it's actually achieving its intended goals, exfiltrating data, creating back doors, whatever it's planning on doing, a ransomware or whatever, we're in trouble by this point, right? It's doing its action on objectives. In the example I gave you, we were fortunate that this organization had good endpoint protection that stopped the installation of this malware. So that's the cyber kill chain and what it means. Now, let's have a look at TTPs. TTPs are tactics, techniques, and procedures. So, everyone has their own style, right? The way they dress, the way they walk, what they do. And if you know somebody well enough, you've worked with them, you've seen their writing, the way they express themselves. Let's say that somebody left a handwritten note on your desk. And the way they said things, the style of their writing, and the contents of the note, even though you don't have a signature who wrote the note, you know exactly who this note is. This is Jane, unequivocally. You don't even have to think about it. And the reason why is because you've established a series of very powerful pieces of information that help you identify that person or identify other people by the way they do things. This is the same thing we do with threat actors. They have ways that are turned into patterns of activities, methods with the way they do things. The T for tactics is the way they perform the attack from beginning to end. The T for techniques is the technical methods, the tools that they use. The procedures are the organizational approach that they take, the threat actor, to launch the attack. You put these together, it's almost like getting the thumbprint of the attack. So even though the attacker doesn't say, hey, I'm with this attacking group, you examine the TTPs and you can tell who they are. So one of the things that we want to do is look at behaviors in our computing systems, our networks, that indicate an adversary at work. So let's go into the 4th floor of a typical office building. In this 4th floor, we have customer support, customer relations. This is where we have people on the phones all the time. So all of these employees, each one of them, have a desktop computer. On that desktop computer, they run one app. They have regulated break times and lunch times and shifts that people come in. Whenever one user gets off of or finishes a shift or goes on breaks, they log off the application, not the computer. They log off the application, and then they take a break, and then they come back and log back on the application, and it's monitored by supervisors and managers, and that's all that happens, right? These users don't go into Windows and open up a browser. These users don't download a new app from Microsoft or from anywhere. They just answer the phone. They just take care of the customer data. And that's what they do for a living. That's how they make their money every 2 weeks. Now, what happens if one of those computer systems is scanning the network or using PowerShell, or one of those computer systems where there is just people who answer the phone? That's what they do all day, but there is a proxy server that information is being sent over this computer. Or what if one of those employees' accounts is using the command line, using PowerShell, maybe not using a web browser, but some other type of HTTP user agent to access resources somewhere else in the company? Or maybe some user account or computer on that floor is sending information out to a command and control server, a known feature for attack groups. Or maybe, what do you mean? What's going on here? There's a DNS tunnel from one of these workstations. The only thing you can use that for is hiding the fact that you're sending data out of the organization, or a web shell, or piling up data different places on the network. Each of these, this is not normal behavior for normal users, normal employees. These are the behavior of an adversary. Somebody has control of an account or of a workstation, and they're trying to use that against you. So these are some very important behaviors to look for in a network to identify adversaries. One of the other areas that we need to monitor and be able to identify are indicators of compromise, or IOCs. An indicator of compromise is like a clue. I see a magnifying glass here, right? An artifact, a little piece of forensic data that's found on a network, found on an application, found on an operating system that indicates that there might be malicious activity. There might be an intrusion or an attack going on right now. And so they give you a good source of information about threats. And they can help in the intelligence gathering process. And what we do as organizational professionals is we do continuous monitoring to try to find IOCs, and we detect. And IOCs are also extremely useful in the response to a threat, because I can take the IOCs and I can put them together and distill them in a way that can help with the forensic process that we see like over here. And then I can use them to stop future threats, evolving threats. So IOCs, indicators of compromise, clues, artifacts, forensics data that show that a system is compromised and how it's been compromised. So if we look at IOCs, there are actually different types of indicators that can help us to detect threats. So for instance, there are email indicators. These are used to send malicious data to target organizations by means of email. So like for instance, the sender's email address, subject, attachment, that header information could give us a good email indicator. And so I could, for instance, take the email indicator that I find. All right, this is an indicator of an attack, and it's coming from this domain, this IP address. I can actually take that IOC, feed that information into my security apparatus, and block it. See how an IOC can be useful. Same with network identifiers. So for instance, I see that someone's using a command and control server. There's malware that's being delivered, looking at the operating system, the task. Like for instance, I can find URLs. I can find domain names and IP addresses that might be used as part of an attack. Again, how useful is this? I can take that information, feed it into my endpoint protection, feed it into my intrusion detection and prevention systems, and have those network URLs, domain names, and IP addresses blocked and stop the attack. So IOCs are useful with helping with defending the network. I could have host-based indicators that it's infected, register keys, mutex, DLLs, file hashes. I could take the hash of an executable that I found on an infected system and feed that hash into my endpoint protection and say, if you see this file, quarantine and or delete, and protect my system because of the IOC that I found. I could have behavioral indicators. Like I said before, on that floor where everyone's just doing phone answering and logging into an app, one single app, but there's PowerShell, remote command execution, etc. What I can do is take those indicators and use them to block the sources of the attack that's happening. So IOCs, different categories, very important to see and understand. The next thing we're going to look at is some hacking concepts and hacker classes. What is hacking? Hacking, in the broadest sense, is the ability to take a complex system and use it in a way for which it was not created. In fact, that's why if you go to YouTube and you type in the word HACKS, you're not going to find a bunch of ways to write a script to subvert a DLL on a system. No, you're going to find how to use a peanut butter and grapefruit to make your hair shiny, or how to take a wood wedge and bang it into a part of your car to remove something and then put in another thing. It's like using these complex systems and finding ways of doing things differently. That's why you see all these different hacks in YouTube or online. In IT systems, which are extremely complex, what we're doing is we're using these extremely complex systems, which were made simply to communicate and facilitate transactions and so on. And we're finding vulnerabilities, we're finding ways around security, or where there is no security, and taking advantage of it in order to gain unauthorized access or inappropriate access. Why? Because we've taken that complex system and used it in a way that it wasn't intended to be used. So what happens is a hacker will modify the system, modify the application in order to achieve the goals. And it can steal, redistribute intellectual property, lead to business loss. So hacking can do all of that stuff. Who is a hacker? It's somebody who's intelligent, who has excellent computer skills. And I want to tell you, excellent computer skills can be learned. And it's easier than ever to do that. They can create, explore the computer. Again, complex systems, using them in ways for which they were not expected to be used. Some hackers, hacking is a hobby. They just want to check it out. Try to compromise computers or networks. They're just playing around, having some fun. Some hackers, their intentions can be to gain knowledge or probe and do illegal things. All right. So some hack with malicious content, steal business data, credit card information, social security numbers, passwords, etc. So what we're seeing here is not all hacking is bad. All right. Some people are doing it as a hobby, and some people are doing it because they get paid to do it. Those are called consultants, or those are called red team security workers. But others do hacking for illegal purposes. So let's look at the classes of hackers, threat actors. All right, so let's make one thing clear. This is actually pretty good that we see the title the way it's presented. Not all hackers are criminals. Not all hackers are threat actors. So a hacker might be somebody like one of your system engineers, your security engineers, that has all kinds of tricks up her sleeve to do crazy stuff with computer systems. but they are not a threat to the organization or anywhere else. Rather, they're helping out. A hacker can be somebody like a pen tester who's hired by an organization to help assure that the systems are not vulnerable to attack. However, if the hacker is a black hat hacker, they have extraordinary computer skills and they're doing it for destruction, right? They are crackers. They crack into systems. The biggest difference between a black hat hacker and a white hat hacker, who is just somebody who works for an organization or has their own company that does it to try to defend computer systems, the biggest difference between a black hat and a white hat hacker is one word. And that word is permission. Permission. So let's look at a hack. All right, so there's a hacker. The hacker scans a website for an organization. The website has vulnerabilities. One of the vulnerabilities allows the hacker to get to the inside of the network and find an application that is running on an N-tier surface presentation. And so they go to the presentation level and they use a special hack using a stored procedure on the database called XP_CMD shell. Running that stored procedure, they're able to get the database to allow them access to the underlying operating system. And using the underlying operating system, since the database is running as root, they're able to take a user account that they discovered and turn it into a root account. After getting the root account, they're able to go from the Linux network into the Microsoft network and find other applications and other data and begin to exfiltrate data under the guise of DNS transactions to a command and control server, where they are able to accumulate 200 gigabytes of data from the organization and compromise 14 different machines. Is that bad? I guess you could say. And if the hacker has been paid to test the security of the organization, they're a pen tester. They're a white hat hacker. What they're going to do now is they're going to write a report and they're going to show you all the different ways that the organization is vulnerable, and they're going to get paid a bunch of money for showing you how to lock it down. The other, because they have permission. The black hat hacker does not have permission, and they're doing it as a criminal enterprise, and they should be arrested and locked away in jail, digging away at the salt mines on Regulus 4. So gray hat hackers are people who work both offensively and defensively at various times. A gray hat hacker is sometimes referred to as a person who might do black hat now and then and white hat now and then. If you're doing any black hat, you're a criminal. So don't want to ever do that. Suicide hackers are black hat hackers that don't care about getting caught. Script kiddies are hackers that have low skills. So let's say that there's somebody who really is kind of new to the whole computing world. They watch a few YouTube videos, download Kali Linux, and they launch a high orbit ion cannon distributed denial of service attack against a company. And they just really started learning this last week. They're a script kiddie, right? Just running script stuff that's already been put together by real hackers. So we have different, and by the way, there are many more classes of hackers and threat actors. And really, everybody on this list, except for white hat hackers, are threat actors. We also continue this list with a few others. A cyber terrorist, right? They have political or religious beliefs and they're trying to terrorize whatever network or host or organization. We have state-sponsored hackers. Right now, probably the first level of military in most nations is cybersecurity, cyber attack, cyber threat. And so every major government in the world has state-sponsored hackers. We have hacktivists. They are promoting a political agenda, maybe disabling or defacing a website. We have hacker teams, consortiums of organized crime-based attackers that work together with such great organization that they are organized almost like a major corporation. And these hacker teams are taking on bigger and bigger projects. We also have industrial spies, and these are corporations that are spying on and hacking other corporations. Another type of attacker would be an insider. This is somebody who already has logon, they already have privilege, they already have an account, and they're trusted, but yet they are attacking the organization. Another one would be, like I was describing before, a criminal syndicate, organized criminal activity, organized hackers, hardened criminals that use even rented devices like AWS or Azure or botnets or others to organize attacks, get money, steal data, etc.